Hello everybody and welcome to another programming tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to be making an alarm in Python. It's just a really simple alarm that runs in the command line. I can demonstrate it here. Just enter the time you want your alarm to go off, like 6 a.m. and it will display the time until the alarm, 14 hours and 42 minutes, because it's 3:18 p.m. for me now, and it gives me the current time, which is 3:18 p.m. and it will just keep telling me this until it's time for the alarm to go off, in which it will play a sound, and the sound that I have is alarm.wav, and I'm not going to play it now because it is really loud and obnoxious, but I will put it in the GitHub link if you want to use that sound. You can use any sound you want, really. But let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with our imports, because we're going to need the date time module, the time module, Pygame, and regular expressions. So import date time. We're going to want to import a function from datetime called time delta. We're going to want to import time and import Pygame. We're going to use Pygame for playing the sound, and then we need to import re. Re is for regular expressions, and it will be used to validate the time the user enters. The next step we need to do is initialize the Pygame mixer, because that's what plays the sound. So just pygame.mixer.init. Simple as that. Then we're going to create a global variable called sound. You can call it whatever you want. Sound equals pygame.mixer.sound with a capital S, and then the name of your file. Mine is alarm.wav. This function only works with WAV files. There is another function that works with MP3s, but you can't create a sound variable out of it. You have to just load it into the mixer and tell the mixer to play it. I'll put a link to that in the description on how to do that. Now we're going to create the function that gets the time from the user. So def get time. I'm programming JS too much. We're going to say while true, because we want to ask them for the time, then validate the time, and if it's invalid, ask them again. So we're going to say time equals input desired alarm time, and you can put any message there. And then we're going to say time and valid are equal to check valid time. Check valid time we'll write next, and that just makes sure that the time is valid, and it's also going to give us the time back because it might need to make a little modification to it. Then next we're going to say if valid is false, continue. So just ignore any code below the continue and go back to the top of the loop. But if we don't continue, then we're just going to return time. Returning will break the loop because it exits the function. So now we're going to def check valid time. It'll take in a time, and we're going to start. I'm going to copy something in. We're going to start by creating this time re. And this is a regular expression that determines if our time is in the right format. This says, are there 2 digits before a colon, then 2 more digits, then a space here, and then an A or a P, and then an M. And since our times will be taken in as 0, 5, or from double digit numbers like 10, 11, and 12, just that double digit, that works out, and then like 0, 1, or 15 is both double digits there, and then AM and PM. So now we're going to want to enter a try catch because there's a possibility for an error if the time is not valid, but we're just going to accept that error and return false. So first we want to check if the user inputs a time like this. We don't want to make that invalid, but it is. We want to add a 0 in front, which will make it valid. So what we're going to say is if times 0 does not equal a 0, and time 1, so the second item in the list, equals a colon, then we're going to say time equals 0 plus time, and we're going to return time and check valid time with time 1. So what this will do is, what we're doing in this function is we're returning the time as the first item and the validation as the second item, which is the first item indexing. So we're returning the time because this is the valid time, and we're returning the validation of our new time, because it's possible that even after appending this 0, it's still an invalid time. So we want to validate it. We're doing that right there. Else, if that's not the case, then we want to return time with re.findAll time re and time. This will find all the values of that match this within the string. There should only be one, but we want to make sure that the first item in that list is equal to our time, and that just does that. And then we're going to go into our accept and just return none and false. We got an error somewhere in here, which means there's something wrong with the time, and return false. So now we're going to test it. We run it, we don't get any errors, we're good. So now let's see, let's print check valid time. No, let's just print get time, because get time validates our time for us. So print get time. So it asks us to input the desired time, and we will input 5:30 a.m. and it returned our time because it was valid, because it appended that 0 there, right here. It was valid, and it went on. But if we do it again, and we input something like I put a space there, 30 a.m., it is invalid, so we need to input our valid time. It's valid, it goes through, we're good. Next, we want a function for easily getting the current time. So def current time, and we want to pass in this format, and we're going to set it equal to %, capital I, colon, %, capital M, space, %, P. And this is a date time module thing. It's going to return the current time and then format it into hours and minutes with the AM PM. We could also do it in many other ways: hours, minutes, seconds, or military time, whatever we want. But this is what we're going to use. I'll link to the date time documentation so you can see other formats you could use, but this is going to be the default format. And all we're going to do in here is we're going to say time equals datetime dot datetime dot now, and we're going to return time dot strf time fmt. Now this returns a datetime object, I believe, which has a lot of things like the time zone and time in milliseconds and current time and the date and all that stuff. But we just want what our format tells it to give us. So this strf time converts it into a string based on our format. So if I did it right now at 3:29 p.m., it would return 03:29 p.m. And I can do that, I can show that. We can just print current time, and I'll run it, and we get 3:30 p.m. Next, another helper function that we'll need, I'm calling it change time. It's probably not the best name, but it's all I could think of. And basically what this is doing is it's converting a time from this format with no seconds into the format with seconds, but it's just zeros for its seconds. So we're going to say time equals datetime dot datetime dot strp time, and we're going to pass in this format here. And what this does is it converts it from a string into a datetime object. And this is telling you what format, this is telling the function what format it's in, so it knows how to turn it into a datetime object. And then we're going to return time.strf time with %i %m %s space %p. And what this does is it basically turns 03 p.m. into 0:30:00 p.m. Just 3:30 and 0 seconds. Because we only care about 0 seconds, and it's not really possible to change it from this time with no seconds into a time with the correct amount of seconds, since we don't tell it how many seconds there are. And that's just that. Now, another helper function, but this is the last helper function, and you don't need this one if you don't want it. You also don't need the change, no, you do need the change time, but you don't need this time, this one, because all this is for the printing how long it is until the alarm goes off. This is figuring out how many hours from now to a given time. And we're going to call it def dtime, which is a delta, which stands for delta time. We're going to pass in a time and this format, but we want to pass it in with the seconds because we're going to be doing change time on it before we pass it in. And so now it's going to be with that format. So then we're going to say then equals datetime dot strp time then and fmt. I just realized you need to pass in then. So we're strip timing the then. We're going to do the same time with now. We're going to change this to now because it's now. Datetime dot strp time now with the format. And then we're going to say t delta equals then minus now, because these are both datetime objects and they have operator overloading, so they can do subtraction, and they'll do some magic within them to do time subtraction. But there could be an error if days is negative, if the days in that time delta is negative. So what we want to see is if t delta dot days is less than 0, so if it's negative, then t delta equals a time delta, which we imported from date time, and we want to set its days equal to 0, its seconds equal to t delta dot seconds, and its microseconds equal to t delta dot microseconds. And then we just return t delta. And that's it. We are now ready to move on to the actual alarm function. So we're going to def alarm, pass in a time and a format. And we're going to default that format to the one with seconds. And we're going to say while true. This lets it run until it's time to play the alarm sound. We're going to say info equals, I'm going to copy this in because it's a long thing to type, but I'll explain it. Info equals, and this is just a string. The current time is our current time with the format, and then it's comma time until the alarm. This is our delta time. Delta time, we want to change the time, give it those seconds, because the actual time we pass in, when we wrote this, it didn't have any seconds in it. And we take the change time with our time, the current time with our format, delta time them with our format. Then we're going to say print info end equals \r. \r is a special character that stands for carriage return, which means go back up one line. So what it's doing is it's printing, going back up a line, then printing again. What this does is it prints over itself, and that allows you to get that effect where it's a single, it's not printing everything down, it's just printing once, but that print is changing. That \r lets you do that. Then we're going to say if current time at the format is equal to change our time, then we play it. And that is as simple as sound.play -1. The -1 tells it to play infinitely. And so now we can say main, which is just a VS Code shortcut for that. And we will say alarm get time. Now I'm going to turn down my computer volume to almost 0 because I'm going to let the alarm sound play and I don't want to blow your ears out. So here we go. We're going to run it, input our desired time at 3:40 p.m. Enter. Current time is 3:39 and 48 seconds. There's 11 seconds until the alarm goes off. There might be a loud sound, so be wary. It's actually not that loud, but you might be able to hear it. So I just stopped it with Control-C, and that's probably the easiest way to stop it. But that's it. This is a simple alarm. There's a lot of stuff you can add to it. I plan to make a video in the future adding a whole GUI to it with tkinter. I can actually show that off because I have it. I've made it, and here it is. This allows you to create multiple alarms. I can create one for 5:30 a.m. and it will go off at 5:30 a.m. I can create one for 3:41 p.m. and it will go off. And they could both be going off at the same time if their times are close enough to each other or if their times are the same. This one's about to go off right here, as you may be able to hear. And I can just stop it, which will delete it and stop its sound from playing. That's a future thing that I plan to make a video about. But I hope you like this video. I hope you like the format and how quickly I was going through it. Hope it wasn't going too fast or too slow. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.